Hello and welcome to Contra Mundum. My name is Suzanne Eileen Martin. I am your host today, and I have a special guest in my friend Elizabeth. You want to introduce yourself a little? Tell my audience a little about you.
Hello, my name's Elizabeth. I'm from Texas, and I also go to Liberty with Susanna. And we're here today to talk about writing, which I know a little bit about. I have 2 books published, and I like writing a lot for fun. So
Yeah,
it's my
awesome.
main
So
hobby.
can you tell me a little bit about how you got into writing? Was there someone who encouraged you, or what was that process like?
There wasn't really anyone specific. When I was I think 3 or 4, I learned to read and just started reading everything I could get my hands on after that. And I think my first little story that I wrote was based on the TV show Redwall. It was a few little pages of a 5-year-old's writing, and I just kept expanding and doing longer and longer stories after that. So,
Oh, that's adorable. So one thing that I wanted to talk about is you have published 2 books. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process was like?
So when I was in 6th grade, I started writing these books, and a few years later, I realized I wanted to start trying to publish them, and I didn't know much about publishing. So my mom and I just got on the internet and searched around and found a good company up in Washington. They're like a cross between self-publishing and traditional publishing. So you're able to get all of the marketing and editing help and everything that you would get with a traditional publisher, but you still have all the input and influence on the book that you would have with self-publishing. So we decided to go with that route, and I got the first 2 books in my fantasy series published a few years ago.
Cool, awesome. So one thing that I wanted to talk about is you haven't actually published again, and you don't really want to. Can you tell me why? Why would you go from wanting to publish to not wanting to publish?
I think one of the main reasons that authors succeed is that they have the personality and the drive to be able to market their books and be kind of in the spotlight all the time, and that's just not my personality. I enjoy doing book signings and events, but I just I don't have, I guess, the passion for marketing myself that a lot of authors do. And especially with a company where there's a lot of self-published aspect to it, you have to do a lot of the work yourself as far as blogging online, reaching out to other authors, getting interviews, and doing all these things. And I don't know, it's just not what I want to do. I thought it was, but after doing it for a few years, I just realized that I don't have the personality or the passion for it. So
Yeah, that's understandable. But it's still a lot of fun writing and
it
that
is,
kind of thing.
yeah.
So
I still have 3 books I'm working on now just for fun. So I am still writing.
Do you let the fiance read the books?
No.
No?
No.
Not even. It's just for you, huh?
Yeah. I mean, he has books that I haven't read, so.
Oh yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah. I can take a little bit of responsibility for introducing her to her fiance actually,
Yes.
because she joined my writing club, and then a friend of mine invited him to the writing club, and then they met, and it was history from then on.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really interesting. You're right about one thing. It does take so much more time and energy and even personality to go like the self-published route in particular. Even publishing traditional publishing these days, if you're a small person, they're not going to market you most of the time. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So that does make life a little bit harder. But I really think that's interesting, because even most people would just, go for it, but you just decided, nah, it's not worth it.
And I mean, plus being in school all the time, and I'm, half the country away from my mom, who was kind of the one helping me get everything, like all the events and book signings and everything. And it was just hard because I wasn't physically present in Texas to be able to do any of these events. And, I could do 1 or 2 maybe over Christmas, but it just wasn't enough to keep the momentum going. And yeah, being in college just kind of gave me other priorities, and I figured out that I just like writing more for fun. I don't like having the pressure of trying to get the next book finished, and your audience wants things to go a certain way and you may want them to go another way, and so there's just a lot of aspects that I didn't like about it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So could you tell me a little bit more about what you write? What style do you write in?
As far as genre?
Yeah, let's genre first.
Okay. The books that I've published are mostly like fantasy, similar to Lord of the Rings or Narnia. That was my main genre love for a long time, but recently with other books I've been writing, I'm kind of branching out, doing more like general and historical fiction. I still like fantasy and sci-fi, but I'm trying to branch out a little more. So.
Yeah. That's one thing with the writing club that I've been trying to do is try not to just do fantasy and sci-fi because that's my thing. I'm obviously I'm a huge superhero buff and that kind of thing. So it's trying to do things that are not in my comfort zone just to see if I can.
Yeah.
It's an important thing when you're a writer.
Mm-hmm. And it helps you learn more about like different types of characters and settings and more about yourself too when you kind of explore different genres. So I like that aspect.
So when you did publish, how many people would show up to like a book signing or something?
It depended on where the signing was and how well advertised it was. A lot of the smaller events that I went to were not well advertised, and so the only people there would be like the other authors, and that was just kind of a waste of time for everybody. But if it was like a well-publicized event like at Barnes & Noble, or I did a few at the Gathering of the Scottish Clans where there were already a lot of people.
Gathering of the Scottish Clans?
Yes.
We're going to have to talk about that in a second. Keep going.
And so, like, where there were already a lot of people, they would stop by and see, like, oh, what's this? And it was a lot easier to try to sell the books when there were people who showed up. So
well, I would imagine, yeah.
Yes. So it depended a lot on how well advertised the event would be.
Yeah, advertising is a big thing because when you're a mid-list author or even a low-list author, it's not a matter of whether or not. Sometimes it's not even a matter of whether or not the event is advertised. It's can you be able to get there and can you actually do what you need to do to get people. If you're a higher list author, you can publicize the event.
Yeah.
But for someone like you and I who have books published but haven't really tried to advertise very often, if we were to go to like a book publishing, there would be some people there, but most people would go like, oh cool, I'll get a book signed. I don't know who this person is, but hey.
Yeah. Okay.
Gathering of the Scottish Clans.
Yes. So
what is that? Long digression, I'm sure, but go ahead.
So in Salado, which is where my grandparents live in Texas, there's an annual gathering of the Scottish clans. And so everybody with Scottish heritage, even from like 100 miles away will come, and there's a lot of like food and Scottish dancing and events. They have like swords and jewelry, and it was so fun. I used to be able to go every year, but now that I'm in college, I can't go because it's in November and it's in Texas. But we did pretty well selling books at that event. We usually sell 30 or more being there. So that was a lot of fun, and it was a pretty good event to sell books at. So.
That's really interesting. Have you ever had someone just like, have you ever had someone who's like read your books come up to you and like, oh, I loved your book so much?
Occasionally, usually if we go back to the same place, somebody who was there last year and got the book will come back and be like, oh, I got your book last year for Christmas. I loved it. But if it's somewhere we haven't been before, that doesn't happen as often. So yeah, it's fun. That's
the low list, mid list author thing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe, but yeah. I'm hoping someday to get into publishing, but mostly I've done my first novelette, but not much other than that because college.
Yes.
College is a thing. Yes. Okay. That's really interesting. What would you say if you were to go into publishing, if you were saying like giving advice for someone going into publishing, what would you recommend?
If you're going the traditional publishing route, I would say try to get an agent because they would be able to help you mediate between the publishing company. It's hard to get agents unless you've like published before. They don't really take chances on new people as often, but I think that would be helpful for someone trying to get into the traditional publishing. If you're going the self-publishing route, you could try to find a publishing house kind of like I did where they'll still do pretty much everything for you, but you still have some control. Like I was able to help design the cover for the book and talk directly with my editor. So just try to be as involved with the book as you can. And if you really are passionate about it and have the personality for it, You just have to keep working at it, and, just really, it has to become your profession pretty much, just because there's so much work and involvement. But yeah, I guess that would be the advice I would give.
Yeah, I think it's good advice to kind of make it your profession, but you got to realize you're probably going to have more than one job, at least at the beginning.
Definitely.
Most of the authors that I'm friends with online that I've followed for a while, they have day jobs, most of them. Some of them don't, but most of them have day jobs, so they have someone else who can support them. Rich husbands are nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, that's one thing that I would say is if you are an author, don't quit your day job immediately, because unless you're really, really like Stephanie Meyer lucky,
Yeah.
you're not going to hit it big with like your first book.
Very, very accurate.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there trying to become one-hit wonders, or, just get their books off the ground, and, they think everybody will love it. It'll become a movie. I'll be rich and famous. And that just doesn't happen often, 1 in a million. So don't quit your day jobs.
Yeah. It requires really hard work.
It does.
That's the thing. A lot of people are thinking, oh, it's not that hard. It's just writing. No. No.
You have to be good at it.
Yeah. You have to be good at it. You have to have a grasp of what story is. Mm-hmm. Because that's another thing. One thing, okay, let's talk about for a second. Let's talk about, have you ever used Amazon? Like Amazon Kindle publishing?
No, but I am thinking about using that. I have one book that I'm working on that I might publish just on Amazon, not as like hardcover or anything, but I'm thinking about using that route.
I liked it. My first book is on Amazon, and I really enjoyed the process. It was really easy. It was surprisingly easy. There are some disadvantages to Amazon, but mostly it's really good. It's a good route to go, especially if you don't have much time. If you just want to publish it just to do it, then Amazon is definitely your best friend. But a lot of the authors that I was talking about earlier, a lot of them do ebooks and that kind of thing. And that makes life easier because today's readers aren't necessarily the people that are going to go to a Barnes & Noble and go and do that. Barnes & Noble's been going down for a while. People are not just buying books and hardcover books. They're going on and they're buying Amazon books. And that's one thing that big traditional companies are doing wrong is they keep pricing their regular books the same as their ebooks. And nobody wants to pay regular book prices for an ebook.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people stop by my table and be like, oh, how much is the book? And I'll tell them, and they'll be like, oh, that's expensive. Is it on ebook? And I'm like, yes, it would help me more if you bought the actual book, but I understand if you don't want to spend that much money. So, yeah, I have had a lot of people get it on ebook too.
Yeah, my first book was only like 8,000, or, well, the first one I have published anyways. The first one I wrote was 80,000 words, but that's being revised because it makes my eyes bleed when I try to read it. Because I wrote it when I was 15. But yeah, my first book I actually have published is, it's only $1 or something because it's only 8,000 words. So I was like, I'm not going to charge like $3 just to get the 70% on Amazon. That's one thing. I might talk about this at some point in a future podcast, is that Amazon has a system where if you have more than the amount of money, then you get more money. It's like if it's something like under $1 or under $2.99, you only get 30% of it. And then over $2.99 to like, I don't know, $8 or something, you get 70% of it, which is nice. I like that. But I wouldn't make someone pay $2-3 for a book that's, a tenth the size of an average book. Yeah. So I think that's fair. Yeah. So Amazon I think is a pretty good route. And so what you mentioned there was a book that you wanted to publish, you were thinking about. What is that? Is that Rat Race?
No. This one is loosely based on Celtic mythology, which is something I've always been interested in. And I've been working on it for maybe 2 years, just kind of off and on as I am interested in it. It's going to be pretty short, a lot shorter than the ones I've published. But I thought, some people might like this, people like Celtic mythology, so I thought if I finish it, I'll just throw it up on Amazon, and if anybody wants to read it, they can, but I'm not going to try to market it like I did the others, so.
Do you have any idea how many of your first ones sold?
It's hard to say because there's online sales as well. We only had, I think, 1,500 printed, so I don't know how many of those have been sold compared to online books. If I had to take a guess, I would say maybe close to 1,000 of those. I'm not sure.
Oh, it's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
So there's like 1,000 people that have had your book in some form in your hand.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Are they still up right now? They're still up online?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're you can find them pretty much anywhere online. Amazon, iTunes, Smashwords, any of the little publishing places.
So what are they called, by the way?
The first one is Young Falcon, and the second one is Fallen Rose. It's the Sons and Daughters series. There was originally going to be 8 books, but I have since abandoned that series. I might pick it up again at some point.
Poor series.
I know. I have the third one mostly done, but I don't know if that one will ever see the light of day. So.
Yeah, see, that's one of the problems with writing for series, because a lot of times you'll get bored, writing in that series. And inspiration is a funny thing for writers.
Yes.
Are we going to have inspiration or not? Well, I don't know. Does your muse feel like screwing with you today? I've met many authors who personify their muse, like they give their muse a name, which I think is hilarious. Yeah. I wouldn't name mine anything that I can say in this podcast. Okay, let's talk for a second about inspiration. How do you get your ideas?
Well, I base a lot of my characters off of real people. One of the major characters that I use, John. I'm sure you remember John.
Yeah, I remember John.
He was based on somebody I used to know, and I just thought that he had a really interesting personality, and I was like, he would make a good character in a story. So I kind of kidnapped him and turned him into a character and just kind of made him my own. He's not really the same at all as the guy I used to know anymore, but he's become his own person now.
Kidnapped. I love that. I love the way you said that.
And as far as inspiration goes, I just have to keep myself interested in the story. So I come up with a lot of plot twists, and I don't really put down a certain plot that I have to stick to, because I think if I did that, I would get too bored because I knew where the story was going. So I kind of try to keep it like real life, like you don't actually know what's going to happen until you get there. And so it keeps me interested enough to keep writing, and I want to know what finds out. Or I want to find out what's going to happen, so I just keep going and see what happens. And the characters usually just kind of take hold of the story, and if they do something that I think is in character, I'll just let them do it, no matter what the consequences might be. So
yeah, that must sound like kind of nuts to authors, but I know to non-authors, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're a bit of a pantser when it comes to that kind of thing. Someone who flies by the seat of their pants writing.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm more of an organizer. I need something to have. I'll outline just a little bit with this, like a basic character structure, or a basic plot structure, character bios, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I know where I'm going, because it's always nice to look back and like, all right, where was I going? Ah, right, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I do have like a vague idea of where I want the story to go. Like one of the ones that I'm writing right now was based off just kind of a stupid little story that my friend and I wrote in high school, and I decided that I wanted to turn it into a novel, and so I know what happens in the story that we wrote, so I'm just kind of like reorganizing I'm actually giving it a plot. I didn't really have a plot, and just kind of seeing...
Plots are important.
Yes. So I'm just kind of turning it into a more structured novel, but, so I have a vague idea of where I'm going, but I like to keep it, flexible as well. So.
Okay. So how did you go... You said that one was supposed to have like 8 books in the series.
Yeah.
How did you pants that?
I did do a lot of outlining for that one.
Okay.
I have since learned that I don't do well with outlining, but for that one I had extensive plot, outline, character bios, backstory, everything. And I think that's why I got bored with it after a while, is because I already knew
what was
too
going.
much, And so when I started writing The Rat Race, I didn't really have any idea where it was going, and we all know where that ended up, 1,700 pages later. But
how many pages?
1,700.
Oh God, dear
Yeah,
Lord. Dear Lord.
That's what happens when I pants it. So.
Yeah, I still want to read that though.
It's weird. It's a weird story.
Yeah, but weird stories are some of the most fun ones.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you and I are different when it comes to that, but we end up writing kind of similar in that, especially very similar in case of that one thing for writing club. There was one time, the very first, I think it was one of the first or second stories in writing club that we did. The prompt was, what was it?
It's like you go back in time.
Yeah, okay.
10
You
years
meet the love of your life 10 years ago and they're nothing like you expect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As you can imagine, that prompted a lot of time travel stories. Mostly. But it was funny because yours and mine had very similar themes. We both dealt with like suicide. Mm-hmm. And we both, our main characters, the main male character's name was John. Mm-hmm. And the main female character's name was, what was it, Angie and Anna?
Yeah, Angie and Anna.
It was Angie and Anna. And it was like, wow, we didn't talk to each other at all. But it was just the prompt, just like, here, pull that out of your brain. And this is what happened.
That was funny.
Yeah, it was, I was just reading, I think we read mine first and then yours. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, why? What? We were just giggling the whole time when someone it was a bad thing to giggle during because they were really intense stories, but yeah, that was pretty funny. All right, I think that's about all the time I have. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I might have you back sometime.
Awesome, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, thank you to everyone listening at home, and as always, I will see you next week. Bye.